In 365 years, not days, years, and still his hand moves. The chisel bites into weathered wood, carving a single vertical line. The sound echoes in the cave's silence, sharp, deliberate, final. Ancient hands work the tool, skin like parchment stretched over bone, veins mapping centuries of pulse. The fingers tremble, but they do not stop. A solitary figure sits cross-legged at the mouth of a cliff cave, the wooden tablet resting on his knees. Below him, the valley sprawls in twilight. Campfires flickering like dying stars, smoke rising from a world he no longer recognizes. His eyes scan the horizon. They've seen empires of dust rise and fall. They've watched children become grandparents, then dust themselves, and still, impossibly, they see. Why would God keep one man breathing for nearly a millennium while everyone he ever loved turns to ash? What was Methuselah waiting for that required 969 years? And what secret did he carry, what unbearable knowledge that made him the final witness before the world drowned? In the next hour, you'll discover why the longest life ever recorded wasn't a reward, it was a countdown, and why your years, however few, carry the same sacred, terrible weight. His finger traces one last unmarked space on the wood. If this grips you, subscribe and turn on the bell, because this changes everything. The wheat field glows amber in the early morning light, stalks bending in waves under a breeze that smells of harvest and earth. Young Methuselah kneels in the dirt, sickle in hand, but the blade rests motionless against the ground. He's 40 years old, strong-backed, calloused, ordinary in every visible way. A husband, a father to young Lamech, a man who knows the rhythm of seasons and the weight of honest labor. Except for one thing that sets him apart, his father stands at the field's edge, completely still, face tilted toward the sky as if listening to a conversation no one else can hear. 3 days now. 3 days Enoch has stood like this, refusing food, refusing sleep, speaking only in fragments that make no sense. The other workers whisper as they pass, bundles of grain balanced on their shoulders. He's doing it again. An older man shakes his head. Won't eat, won't speak to his own family. A woman leans close to her companion. My wife says the priest thinks he sees demons, that he's been touched by something unclean. Methuselah feels the weight of their stares, the way they avoid passing too close to him now, as if madness might be contagious. He rises slowly, dusting dirt from his knees, and crosses the field toward his father. His heart hammers with each step, not from exertion, but from something else. Fear, maybe, or the strange sense that the world is about to shift beneath his feet. Father. The word comes out softer than he intended, almost a plea. Enoch doesn't turn. His body is rigid, hands hanging loose at his sides, eyes fixed on something beyond the cloudless sky. When his voice finally comes, it's thick and strange, as if pulled from somewhere deep and ancient, somewhere human voices weren't meant to reach. They're coming for me soon. Who's coming? Father, please. The ones who walk between lightning and silence, the ones whose feet never touch earth. Enoch's lips barely move. I can hear their song now. It's almost time. A chill runs down Methuselah's spine despite the morning heat. He reaches out, almost touches his father's shoulder, then pulls back. The air around Enoch feels different, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Father, you're frightening everyone. The elders are talking. They want to call the priests. Please, come home, eat something, rest. But Enoch's eyes remain fixed on the sky, and Methuselah notices for the first time that his father's lips are moving in a continuous stream, soundless words, endless words, as if reciting something memorized before time began. Scripture, prayer, or something else entirely. Father, at least tell me what you see. For the first time, Enoch's gaze shifts. His eyes meet his son's, and Methuselah nearly gasps. They're his father's eyes. He recognizes the color, the shape, but there's something else behind them now, a depth, a terrible knowing. I see the beginning and the end standing together. I see mercy and judgment kissing. I see your face, my son, when you're older than mountains. What does that mean? But Enoch has already turned back to the sky, and the moment of connection is broken. That night, Methuselah lies awake in his tent, listening to his wife's steady breathing beside him and his young son's soft snores from the corner. Sleep won't come. He keeps seeing his father's face, that strange radiance, that terrible stillness. The words echo in his mind, older than mountains. What kind of madness speaks like that? Finally, he rises and steps into the cool darkness, careful not to wake his family. The camp is quiet, just the distant crackling of dying fires and the occasional bleat of a restless goat. His father's tent sits apart from the others, as it has for the past month. Methuselah had thought nothing of it then. Enoch often sought solitude for prayer, but now the tent glows with lamplight, a beacon in the darkness. Methuselah hesitates at the entrance, his hand on the flap. Part of him wants to turn back, to return to his wife's warmth and pretend tomorrow will be ordinary, but he can't. Whatever is happening to his father, whatever this darkness is, he has to know. He pushes the flap aside. Enoch kneels on the ground, surrounded by clay tablets, dozens of them, scattered like leaves after a storm. He writes with such frantic intensity that his whole body shakes, sweat dripping from his brow despite the cool night. Symbols cover the clay, not the familiar script of their people, not the pictographs used in trade or the characters used for sacred texts, but something else entirely. Something that makes Methuselah's eyes hurt to look at directly, as if the shapes themselves resist being seen. The stylus in Enoch's hand trembles so violently it snaps. The sound is sharp in the confined space, crack like a bone breaking. His father doesn't seem to notice. He simply picks up another stylus from a pile beside him and continues writing, his lips moving in that same soundless recitation. Father. Enoch's head jerks up. His eyes are wet, red-rimmed, hollowed by exhaustion. Dark circles hang beneath them like bruises. For a moment, just a moment, Methuselah doesn't recognize him. This isn't the strong man who taught him to plant and harvest, who told him stories of the first days, who blessed him on his wedding day. This is someone else, someone carved hollow and filled with something vast. Methuselah. His father's voice breaks on the name, and a tear slides down his weathered cheek. When I'm gone, and I will be gone, very soon, you'll understand why your name means what it means. What are you talking about? Methuselah steps closer, kneeling beside his father. You're not going anywhere. You're just exhausted. You need rest. When he dies, it shall be sent. Enoch's voice is steady now, terrible in its certainty. That's what your name means, my son. Your mother and I named you at God's instruction. We didn't understand it then. I do now. Your death will be a sign, a signal, a final warning before everything changes. A warning of what? Father, you're not making sense. Enoch rises to his feet with surprising speed, and Methuselah instinctively takes a step back. His father crosses the space between them and grabs his wrist. The grip is iron, desperate, the grip of a drowning man reaching for solid ground. The knuckles are bone white, tendons standing out like cords. You won't die when others die. You won't grow old at the pace of normal men. You'll outlive your children, your grandchildren, their grandchildren and their children after them. You'll watch cities rise from nothing and crumble back to dust. You'll see wickedness spread like floodwaters, and you'll bear witness to every year of it. And when your final breath comes, that exact day, judgment will fall like rain that never stops. Methuselah tries to pull away, but his father's grip only tightens, bruising now. Father, stop. You're hurting me. You're scaring me. I'm telling you the truth. Enoch's voice rises, cracking with emotion. God is patient, more patient than any man deserves. More patient than this wicked world has any right to expect, and he's going to prove his patience through you. Every year you live, every single year, will be a year of mercy for a world that doesn't want mercy, doesn't seek mercy, doesn't even believe mercy exists. Do you understand what I'm saying? No! Methuselah's voice comes out as barely a whisper. No, I don't understand any of this. I don't understand what's happening to you, what you're talking about, why you're saying these things. You will. Enoch releases his wrist suddenly, and Methuselah nearly stumbles backward. His father turns back to the tablets, his shoulders sagging as if bearing an impossible weight. You will understand, my son. Count every year. Mark them somehow, on wood, on stone, in your heart. Bear witness to each one. Don't let them blur together. Don't let them become meaningless, because they're not. Every year matters. Every year is mercy. And when the count ends, his voice catches, breaks. When the count ends, so does everything. Methuselah's throat is dry, his heart racing. How long? How many years are you talking about? But Enoch doesn't answer. He's picked up the stylus again, and his hand moves across the clay with renewed urgency, as if he's running out of time to record something crucial. The lamplight flickers, casting dancing shadows on the tent walls. Father, please, how many years? The wind comes then, not natural wind, not the kind that makes tent flaps billow and lamps flicker and brings the smell of distant rain. This is something else entirely, a presence, a force, a sound like rushing water and distant thunder and the beating of 10,000 wings all at once. A sound that Methuselah feels in his bones, rather than hears with his ears. The lamps flare bright, impossibly bright, and Methuselah throws his arm up to shield his eyes. The tablets rattle on the ground. The tent fabric snaps and billows though there's no opening for wind to enter. And beneath it all, he hears voices, or perhaps just one voice speaking in many registers at once, saying words he can't quite catch, words in a language he's never heard, but somehow almost understands. Then, as suddenly as it came, the wind passes. The sound fades. The light returns to normal. Methuselah lowers his arm slowly, blinking against the spots in his vision. Father! The tent is empty. The lamps still burn, their flames steady now. The tablets still lie scattered on the ground, covered in those strange, hurting symbols. His father's robe lies crumpled where he'd been kneeling, but Enoch himself is gone. No body, no blood, no sign of struggle, simply gone, as if the air itself had opened and swallowed him whole. Methuselah stands frozen, unable to breathe, unable to think. His mind refuses to process what he's witnessing. People don't just vanish. They die and are buried. They leave bodies behind. They leave something. Then he sees it, a single clay tablet, different from the others. It lies half buried in the dirt floor where his father had been kneeling, as if pressed there with great force. He drops to his knees and lifts it with trembling hands. One sentence, carved deeper than all the others, the letters pressed so hard the clay cracked around them. Count every year. When the count ends, so does everything. The dawn finds him still kneeling there in the empty tent, the tablet clutched to his chest, staring at the space where his father had been. He doesn't remember the night passing. He doesn't remember breathing. He only remembers the weight of the clay in his hands and the impossible absence before him. Footsteps approach. The workers are arriving for the morning harvest. Someone calls out, their voice muffled by the tent fabric. Methuselah, are you in there? He doesn't answer. The tent flap opens. An elder peers inside, sees him kneeling there alone, and frowns. Where's Enoch? He was supposed to meet with the council at first light. Methuselah looks up slowly. His voice comes from somewhere far away, somewhere outside himself. Gone? Gone where? He stares at the tablet in his hands, at the terrible promise carved into clay, at the words that will define the rest of his impossibly long life. "Somewhere I can't follow." He pauses, and when he speaks again, his voice is barely audible. "Not yet." 30 years pass like water through cupped hands, inevitable, unstoppable, leaving only the memory of wetness behind. Methuselah is 70 now. His beard has begun to grey at the temples. His hands bear the permanent stains and calluses of decades of labor. And his son Lamech has sons of his own. The world continues its relentless turning. Seasons come and go. Crops are planted and harvested. People are born, grow old, and die. Everything proceeds as it always has, as it always should, except for one thing. Methuselah himself feels no different than he did at 40, at 50, at 60. His back doesn't ache when he rises in the morning. His eyes don't dim. His strength doesn't fade. And people have begun to notice. The village elders have summoned him. He stands now in the council tent, a semicircle of 12 old men seated before him on woven mats. Clay lamps cast flickering shadows across their weathered faces, faces he's known his entire life. His uncle sits among them. So does his wife's father. Men who blessed his marriage, who held his children, who once treated him as one of their own. Now they look at him with something else in their eyes, something between suspicion and fear. The eldest among them, a man called Jotham, 90 years old and bent like a wind-twisted tree, speaks first. His voice rattles like dry leaves. "Methuselah, son of Enoch, you stand before this council to answer concerning your father. My father has been gone for 30 years, precisely." Jotham leans forward, his eyes sharp despite his age. Gone, not dead, not buried with proper rites, simply gone, vanished like smoke. And you've told us he was taken by God. That's what I witnessed. A younger elder, though still 20 years Methuselah's senior, laughs sharply. Taken by God. Do you hear yourself? Do you know how that sounds? Another elder, a priest named Zakur, speaks with barely contained contempt. Your father was mad, Methuselah. Everyone knew it. 3 days standing in that field, raving about angels and visions, writing in languages that don't exist. We all saw it. We all pitied you. He wasn't mad. Then where is he? Zakur's voice rises. Where is his body? Where is his grave? Your father abandoned you, ran into the wilderness like a madman and died alone, and you, out of shame, have invented this fairy tale about him being taken to heaven. Methuselah feels heat rising in his chest, but he keeps his voice level. I was there. I saw what happened. The wind, the light, the wind. Another elder scoffs. It was a storm, nothing more. And now, Jotham continues, his tone heavy with accusation, you spread this heresy through the village. You tell people your father walks with God, that he was too righteous for death, and you claim, he pauses, letting the words hang in the air like a sword, you claim that you will live longer than any man, that your death will be a sign of coming judgment. Silence falls over the tent. The accusation sits heavy in the smoky air. Methuselah's jaw tightens. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple despite the cool evening. My father told me I would outlive my generation, that my name, when he dies it shall be sent, was given to me for a reason. Every year I live is a year of mercy, and when I die, judgment will come. The silence stretches, then someone laughs. Just one elder at first, then another, until half the council is chuckling, bitter, mocking sounds. Listen to him, one of them says. He thinks he's chosen, blessed above all men, too holy to die like the rest of us. Jotham raises his hand, and the laughter dies. His expression is granite. This is pride, Methuselah, the worst kind, the kind that masquerades as piety. You dishonor your father's memory with these delusions, and you dishonor this community with your arrogance. I speak only what I was told. By a madman. Zaka slams his palm on the ground. By a father who abandoned his family and died in shame. And now you want us to believe you're some kind of prophet, some chosen vessel. Methuselah feels the words like physical blows, but he doesn't step back. He meets their eyes, one by one. Believe what you want. I can't control that. But in 30 years, I haven't aged. I haven't weakened. And in 30 more years, when you're all dead and I'm still standing here, maybe then you'll wonder if my father was as mad as you think. The words come out harder than he intended. The elders stiffen. Jotham's face darkens like a thundercloud. Get out, the old man says quietly. Get out of this tent and be careful, Methuselah, son of Enoch. Pride comes before destruction. And a man who thinks himself unkillable may find himself tested in ways he doesn't expect. Methuselah holds his gaze for another heartbeat, then turns and walks out into the night. His hands are shaking, not with fear, but with anger and something else. Loneliness. The terrible isolation of carrying a truth no one believes. He walks for hours through the darkness, away from the village, away from the judgment in those old eyes. His feet carry him up the familiar path to the hilltop where his father used to pray, where Enoch would stand for hours, face turned toward heaven, listening to things Methuselah couldn't hear. At the summit, he stops. The valley spreads below him, scattered fires, the dark shapes of tents, the distant sound of sheep bleating, a normal world, an oblivious world. He pulls the clay tablet from his robe, the one his father left behind. He's carried it every day for 30 years, the words etched into his memory as deeply as they're etched into the clay. Count every year. When the count ends, so does everything. He sinks to his knees, the tablet clutched in both hands. His voice comes out raw, desperate. God, if my father spoke truth, show me, please. If these years are yours, if this burden is real, let me see one sign, just one. Because I'm drowning here. They think I'm mad. They think I'm proud. And sometimes, his voice breaks. Sometimes I think they're right. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined it all. The wind, the light, everything. Silence answers him. Just the whisper of night breeze through the grass, the distant hoot of an owl. Empty, ordinary sounds. He closes his eyes and the tears come finally, hot, bitter tears of doubt and isolation and the crushing weight of a calling no one else can see. Please, he whispers. Please, I need to know this isn't madness. The wind comes, sudden, wrong. Not a breeze, but a gust that makes the grass spiral upward instead of bending down, that carries a smell like rain that hasn't fallen yet, like lightning about to strike. Methuselah's breath catches in his throat. He opens his eyes. In the distance, perhaps 100 paces down the slope, he sees a lone tree, a twisted olive tree, ancient and gnarled, that's been there as long as he can remember. As he watches, a bolt of lightning splits the sky, silent, impossibly bright, and strikes the tree dead center. He expects fire, expects the crack of splitting wood, the smell of burning, but the tree doesn't burn. It glows. A soft wave steady light emanates from the trunk, from the branches, as if the lightning has been absorbed and transformed into something gentle, something that beckons. Methuselah runs. His feet fly over the uneven ground, his robe tangling around his legs. He nearly falls twice, but catches himself, driven by something beyond thought. He has to reach it. He has to see. When he arrives, gasping, the glow is already beginning to fade. But it's still there, a warm luminescence that seems to pulse like a heartbeat, and carved into the bark, fresh, impossible, the wood still weeping sap, are 3 Hebrew letters. Hey Chai, life. Methuselah reaches out with trembling fingers and touches the bark. It's warm. His fingertips come away wet, but not with sap, with something else. Something that feels almost like tears, if wood could weep. He stares at his hand, at the clear liquid glistening on his skin. And then he hears it, not a voice, not exactly, nothing external that his ears detect, but something internal, something that bypasses sound entirely and speaks directly into the cavity of his chest, into the hollow place where doubt has been eating him alive. Every year you live, someone else receives mercy. Count them, bear them. When the count is full, I will count no more. The words settle into him like stones dropping into a deep well, sending ripples through everything he thought he understood. This isn't about him. It never was. His life, however long, however strange, isn't a blessing or a curse. It's a function, a purpose. Every year he breathes, somewhere in this oblivious world, someone gets another chance. Someone receives one more day to turn, to seek, to find. He's not chosen because he's righteous. He's chosen because God is patient. The glow fades completely. The night returns to normal darkness. But Methuselah remains kneeling at the base of the tree, his wet fingers pressed against the carved letters, tears streaming down his face. How many years, Lord? His voice is barely a whisper. How long must I carry this? Silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty but full, full of presence, full of watching, full of a patience so vast it makes human time feel like heartbeats. He waits there until dawn, hoping for an answer. None comes. But when the sun finally breaks over the eastern hills, painting the valley in gold and rose, he rises to his feet. The clay tablet is still in his other hand. He looks at it, at his father's final message, and then at the carved letters on the tree. Life. Not death, life given, year after year, to people who don't know they're receiving it. To a world that doesn't know it's being granted mercy. He begins the long walk back to the village. The elders won't believe him. His wife will worry. His son will ask questions he can't fully answer. But none of that matters as much now. He knows. Not everything, not how long, not when it will end, but enough. Enough to take the next step. Enough to endure the next year. Enough to carve the first mark. When he reaches home, he finds a piece of smooth wood, cedar, strong and lasting, and borrows a chisel from his neighbor. That evening, by lamplight, with his family sleeping nearby, he carves 30 small vertical lines into the wood, one for each year since his father disappeared, 30 years of mercy, 30 years of patience, 30 years of a countdown he still doesn't fully understand. He runs his thumb over the marks, then looks at the vast empty space remaining on the wood. How many more? Hundreds? Thousands? His hand trembles, but he sets the wood aside carefully, wraps it in cloth, and places it in the corner of his tent where he'll see it every morning and every night. Tomorrow, he'll face the village again. Tomorrow, he'll endure their doubts and their mocking and their fear. Tomorrow, he'll continue being the man who claims too much and proves too little. But tonight, under the watching stars, he knows he's not mad. He knows his father wasn't mad. And he knows that somewhere in this dark and violent world, someone just received another year of grace, and it cost him everything to give it to them. 50 years pass. Not quickly, never quickly, but with the relentless steadiness of water wearing away stone. Methuselah is 120 years old now, and the strangeness of his existence has become undeniable. His wife, Edna, has aged as women age. Her hair is white as winter frost, her hands spotted and twisted with the ache that comes to fingers that have worked for decades. She moves slowly now, supported by their son Lamech when she walks to the well, breathing heavily after even small exertions. She is 75, old by any measure, though not ancient, but beside Methuselah, she looks like she belongs to a different generation entirely, because Methuselah still looks 40, perhaps 45 on a tired day. His beard is streaked with grey, yes, but no more than it was 20 years ago. His back remains straight, his eyes remain clear, his hands, Those impossible hands can still grip a plow, still lift a stone, still work from sunrise to sunset, without the trembling exhaustion that claims other men half his age. Their grandchildren are grown now. Lamech's sons have sons of their own. Methuselah has watched 3 generations grow up around him, while he himself remains frozen in time like a tree that refuses to acknowledge the seasons. And the whispers have turned to something darker. Fear has curdled into suspicion, suspicion into hostility. The merchant caravan arrives on a spring afternoon when the air smells of rain that hasn't fallen yet. Methuselah is outside his home, repairing a section of stone wall that's begun to crumble. His grandsons play in the dirt nearby, building miniature villages out of mud and pebbles, their voices high and bright with imagination. The lead trader dismounts from his donkey, a grizzled man with a face like weathered leather and eyes that have seen too much of the world's darkness. He's perhaps 60, bent and scarred, but his gaze is sharp as he approaches. Behind him, 3 younger men tend to the pack animals, but they keep glancing over at Methuselah with expressions that mix curiosity and unease. "You're the one they call the Undying, aren't you?" The trader's voice is rough, skeptical, but there's something underneath it. Hunger, maybe, or desperation. Methuselah sets down the stone he's been fitting into place. He doesn't stand yet. "I'm just a man with a name, Methuselah, son of Enoch. Son of the one who vanished," they say. "The one who was taken by God." The trader spits into the dirt. "I've heard the stories. Traveled 3 territories, and in every village, someone mentions you. The man who doesn't age. The cursed one. The one with demon blood." He steps closer, his shadow falling across Methuselah. "Some say you made a pact with dark powers. Others say you discovered some secret, some herb or ritual that stops time." Methuselah finally rises to his feet, slowly, deliberately. He's taller than the trader, and the difference in their physical condition is stark. One bent and weathered by time, the other standing straight, despite having walked the earth for twice as long. "I've made no pact. I know no secret. I simply continue." That's not natural. The trader's eyes narrow. "Nothing lives like you live. Nothing human, anyway." Before Methuselah can respond, Edna appears in the doorway of their home. She's been inside, grinding grain, and her arms are dusted with flour. She sees the trader, sees the tension in her husband's shoulders, and moves between them with the fierce protectiveness of a woman who's spent 50 years defending the man everyone else fears. "Leave us," she says. Her voice is thin now, reedy with age, but it carries authority. "We have nothing to sell you, nothing to trade. Leave us in peace." But the trader doesn't leave. Instead, he reaches into his robe and pulls out a leather purse. It clinks heavily, the unmistakable sound of metal. Gold, probably. "I'll pay you," he says, looking past Edna to Methuselah. "Good money, more than you've probably seen in your life. Just tell me your secret. How do you cheat death? What keeps you young while the rest of us rot?" The word hangs in the air like smoke. Cheat. Methuselah's jaw tightens. Something hot and hard rises in his chest. "I don't cheat anything. I don't cheat death. I don't cheat time. I don't cheat God. I carry something. That's all." "Carry what? A talisman? A curse? A mercy?" The word comes out harder than Methuselah intends. "I carry mercy. Every year I breathe, someone else gets another chance. That's the burden. That's the function. And it costs me everything, my reputation, my peace, my place in this community. So take your gold and your questions and your accusations, and leave my family alone." The trader stares at him for a long moment. Then he laughs, a bitter, disbelieving sound. "Mercy, right. You're as mad as they say." He spits again, closer to Methuselah's feet this time. "Mad or lying, either way, you're not worth the journey." He turns and walks back to his caravan, shouting orders to his men. Within minutes, They're gone, leaving only dust and the fading sound of donkey hooves on the road. Edna touches Methuselah's arm. "Are you all right?" He doesn't answer immediately. He's staring at the space where the trader stood, at the dark spot in the dirt where the man's spit landed. "They'll never understand," he says quietly. "No matter how many years I live, no matter how many times I try to explain, they'll never see this as anything but madness or demonic power." "Then let them think what they think." Edna's hand tightens on his arm. Her grip is weak now. He can barely feel it, but the gesture means everything. "You know the truth. I know the truth. That's enough." But is it? Is it enough to be believed by one aging wife and a son who tries to have faith, but sometimes looks at his father with questions in his eyes? Is it enough when the whole world calls you cursed? That night, after Edna has gone to bed and the grandchildren have been taken home by their parents, Methuselah sits alone by the small fire outside his home. The wooden tablet rests on his knees, heavier now, not in physical weight, but in what it represents. 120 marks, 120 years, 120 years of mercy granted to a world that doesn't want it, doesn't recognize it, doesn't thank the vessel who bears it. He pulls out his chisel and adds the 120th mark. The sound of metal on wood echoes in the quiet darkness, sharp, final, irreversible. One more year, one more act of divine patience, one more day of grace for someone who will never know they received it. He runs his thumb over the fresh groove, then looks at the space remaining on the cedar plank. Still so much empty wood. Still so many years stretching ahead into an incomprehensible future. "Oh, how many more?" he whispers to the darkness, to God, to himself. How many more before it ends? No answer comes. It never does. Just the crackling of the fire and the distant howl of a jackal in the hills and the sound of his own breathing, steady, unwavering, immortal. 10 years later, everything changes in the way that changes always come, suddenly, devastatingly, without warning. Methuselah is 130. Edna is 85. She's been declining for months, moving less, eating less, sleeping more and more during the day. The village healer has come and gone, shaking his head, offering herbs that do nothing. There's no disease, no wound, just time, finally catching up with her in the way it catches up with everyone. Everyone except her husband. It's early morning when Lamech comes running to Methuselah in the field. His son is 60 now, grey-bearded, weathered, bent slightly from decades of labor. He's gasping, out of breath, and there are tears streaming down his face. "Father, come quickly. Mother she's asking for you." Methuselah drops the hoe he's been using and runs. His legs eat up the distance easily, too easily. He reaches their home in minutes, while Lamech struggles to keep up behind him, wheezing and stumbling. Another reminder. Another proof of the cruel difference between them. Inside, Edna lies on their sleeping mat, propped up with cushions that Lamech's wife has arranged. Her breathing is shallow, labored. Her skin has the translucent quality of paper held up to light. But her eyes, those eyes that have watched him for 50 years, that have seen him remain unchanged while she grew old, are still clear. Methuselah. His name comes out as barely a whisper. He drops to his knees beside her, taking her hand in both of his. Her fingers are so thin now, the bones like bird wings beneath papery skin. I'm here, my love." She manages a small smile. "You're always here. That's the problem, isn't it? You're always here, and I'm leaving." "Don't say that, don't—" "Hush!" She squeezes his hand with what little strength she has left. "We both know. I'm 85 years old, Methuselah. I've lived a full life, a good life, and now it's time." The tears come before he can stop them, hot and bitter, blurring his vision. "I'm not ready. I'll never be ready. You'll have to be." She reaches up with her other hand. The movement costs her visible effort and touches his face. Her fingers trace the lines that haven't deepened in 5 decades, the jaw that's still strong, the eyes that still see clearly. Look at you, still so young, still so strong. I'm not young, I'm 130 years old, but you look 40. A tear slides down her weathered cheek. And I look like your grandmother. No, your great-grandmother. The village children ask Lamech why his mother is married to a young man. Did you know that? They don't understand. How could they? Edna, promise me something. Her voice is fading, each word taking more effort. Promise me you'll find meaning in this. In all the years ahead, don't let them become empty. Don't let bitterness eat you alive. Every year you live, remember what you told me about the tree, about the voice you heard. Every year is mercy for someone. Make it count. He can barely speak through the tightness in his throat. I promise. And when I'm gone, she pauses, struggling for breath. When I'm gone, remember that I believed you. I never thought you were mad. I never thought you were cursed. I always believed that God chose you for this because he knew you were strong enough to bear it. I'm not strong enough, not without you. She smiles again, and it's the smile he remembers from their wedding day, from the births of their children, from 1,000 quiet moments of shared life. Yes, you are. You just don't know it yet. Her breathing becomes more labored. Lamech and his wife are in the doorway, crying quietly. The grandchildren have been kept outside, but Methuselah can hear their confused, frightened voices asking what's happening. I love you, Edna whispers. I always loved you. From the first day to this last day, that never changed, even when everything else did. I love you too, always, forever. Not forever. Her eyes are closing now, the effort of keeping them open too much. Just until we meet again. And for you, my strange, timeless husband, that might be a very long time. A pause, a shuddering breath. Be patient, like the God you serve. He holds her hand as her breathing slows, as the space between breaths grows longer, as the light behind her eyes, that spark that made her her, begins to fade. When she finally goes still, when that last breath leaves her and doesn't return, Methuselah doesn't move. He stays there, kneeling, holding her cooling hand, staring at her peaceful face. The face he's loved for 50 years. The face that grew old while his stayed young. The face he'll never see again until when? 100 years from now? 500? Lamech puts a hand on his shoulder. Father, she's gone. I know. His voice sounds strange to his own ears. Hollow, empty. I know she's gone. The funeral is 3 days later. The entire village comes, not out of love for Methuselah, but out of respect for Edna, who was kind and generous and never claimed to be anything more than she was. They dig the grave on a hillside overlooking the valley. They wrap her body in clean linen. They say the proper prayers and pour the proper offerings, and Methuselah stands there watching them lower his wife into the earth, and he realizes with terrible clarity that he will do this again and again and again. He will bury Lamech. He will bury Lamech's children. He will bury their children and their children's children. He will stand at graveside after graveside, watching the people he loves return to dust while he remains, unchanging, a witness to their mortality. This is the cost. This is what carrying mercy means. Not just living longer, but living beyond the natural span, beyond the deaths of loved ones, beyond the comfort of knowing his own end is near. After the mourners have gone, after Lamech and his family have returned home, Methuselah stays. He stands alone at the grave as the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of red and gold that Edna would have loved. He pulls out the wooden tablet. 130 marks now. He stares at them, each one a year, each year a piece of his life spent, a piece of mercy granted. But they're also years without Edna now. The future marks will all be carved in her absence. 130 years, he says to the fresh-turned earth, and I'm still here. The words feel like an accusation, like a curse, like a truth too heavy to carry. But he will carry it, because what choice does he have? The count isn't finished, the tablet isn't full, the mercy hasn't run out. He touches the earth above where Edna lies. "I'll make them count," he whispers, "like you asked. I'll make every year count for something. I promise." A wind rises, gentle this time, not supernatural, just the normal evening breeze that comes up from the valley. But it carries the scent of wildflowers, and for just a moment, Methuselah lets himself imagine it's Edna's way of saying she heard him. In the distance, storm clouds are gathering, unnatural clouds, too dark for the season, too low, moving against the prevailing wind. He watches them for a long moment, a coldness settling in his chest that has nothing to do with the temperature. Something is changing. He can feel it in his bones, in the air itself. The world is getting darker. Wickedness is spreading like a disease. Violence is becoming commonplace. The Nephilim, the giant offspring of the sons of God and human women, walk the earth now, and where they walk, corruption follows, and he will witness all of it, every year of it. Every descent into darkness, because that's the burden, that's the calling. Count them, bear them, remember them, until the count ends, until everything ends. He turns and begins the long walk back to a home that will feel empty now. Behind him, the storm clouds continue to gather, and somewhere in their dark heart, thunder begins to rumble. Low, distant, inevitable. 100 years pass. Not quickly, never quickly, but with the grinding inevitability of a millstone turning, crushing everything soft into powder. Methuselah is 230 years old. The world he was born into is gone, not destroyed, but transformed beyond recognition. Villages have become towns. Towns have become small cities. The population has exploded, spreading across the fertile valleys like a living carpet. And with the people have come things Methuselah never imagined in his youth: markets that span entire hillsides, temples to gods whose names make his skin crawl, breweries producing intoxicants that turn men into beasts, and everywhere, violence. But what chills him most are the Nephilim. They tower over ordinary men, some 9 feet tall, others even larger. Their eyes are wrong, reflecting light like an animal's eyes in the dark. Their strength is inhuman. Methuselah has seen one of them lift a fully grown ox over his head as easily as a man lifts a child. They rule through fear and force, claiming divine right because of their parentage. Sons of the sons of God, who came down and took human women for wives. Where they walk, corruption follows like a shadow. Methuselah walks through the market of a city called Enoch, named ironically after his father, though the city bears no resemblance to anything his father would have blessed. The stalls overflow with goods from distant lands, spices and silks, weapons and wine, slaves and substances that promise escape from reality. The air reeks of smoke and sweat and something else, something spiritual, rotten, like decay that hasn't quite manifested in the physical world yet. People stare as he passes. They always stare now. His reputation has spread far beyond his home village. The undying, the cursed one, the demon-touched. Some make signs against evil as he walks by. Others simply step aside, giving him wide berth as if age itself might be contagious, or as if whatever keeps him young might be dangerous to approach. He keeps his head down, trying to be invisible, despite being utterly conspicuous. He's here to trade grain for tools, nothing more. He wants to complete his business and leave before trouble finds him, but trouble always finds him now. A stone hits his shoulder, not hard enough to injure, at least not to injure him, but hard enough to sting, hard enough to send a message. He stops, turns slowly. A cluster of children stands by a fruit vendor's stall. They can't be more than 8 or 9 years old, but their faces hold a cruelty that shouldn't exist in children. The one who threw the stone, a boy with a scar on his cheek, grins viciously. "Cursed one," he shouts, "demon-born." The adults nearby do nothing. Some smile, some deliberately look away. Violence against Methuselah isn't just permitted, it's encouraged. He represents something people don't understand, and what people don't understand, they destroy. Before he can respond, a woman, perhaps the children's mother, steps forward and spits at his feet. The glob of saliva lands on the dusty ground between them, and she looks at him with pure hatred. "You're an abomination. You should have died centuries ago. The fact that you're still here, still breathing, proves you've made a pact with darkness." Methuselah's throat tightens. He could respond. He could try to explain, for the 1000th time, that he's not cursed, not demon-possessed, not evil. But what's the point? They never believe him. They never listen. He turns and continues walking, ignoring the laughter and jeers that follow. His hands tremble, not with age, never with age, but with suppressed anger and grief and the crushing loneliness of being utterly, completely alone in a sea of humanity. Then he feels it. A change in the air. A sudden silence that spreads through the market like ripples in a pond. The jeering stops. Even the constant noise of commerce, haggling voices, clattering goods, bleating animals, fades to nothing. Methuselah looks up and sees why. A Nephilim has entered the market. This one is massive, easily 9.5 feet tall, with shoulders as broad as two normal men standing side by side. His hair is dark and hangs past his waist. His beard is braided with bones, human finger bones, Methuselah realizes with horror. And his eyes are like molten gold, burning with an intelligence that's more than human and less at the same time. The crowd parts for him automatically. No one speaks. No one even breathes too loudly. Fear is a physical presence in the market now, thick enough to taste. The Nephilim's gaze sweeps across the crowd, and then, impossibly, terribly, it stops on Methuselah. For a moment, neither moves. They simply stare at each other across the dusty market square, the giant and the man who won't die. Two anomalies recognizing each other. Then the Nephilim begins to walk toward him. Each footstep shakes the ground slightly. The crowd scatters further, pressing themselves against stalls and walls to make room. Methuselah's heart hammers in his chest, but he doesn't run. Running would be pointless. The creature could catch him in 3 strides. The Nephilim stops directly in front of him, so close that Methuselah has to crane his neck back to meet those terrible golden eyes. The creature leans down, his face descending until it's inches from Methuselah's. His breath smells like copper and ash. "You!" The voice is deep, resonant, wrong, like multiple voices speaking in perfect unison. "You smell like time, old time, heavenly time." Methuselah's mouth is dry, but he forces words out. "I'm just a man." "No." The Nephilim's lips pull back in something that might be a smile, revealing teeth that are too sharp, too numerous. "You're not. A man lives 70 years, maybe 80 if he's strong. But you..." He leans even closer, and Methuselah can see his own reflection in those metallic eyes. "You've walked this earth for centuries. I can smell it on you. The dust of ages. The weight of years that should have crushed you long ago. What do you want?" The Nephilim straightens, standing to his full height again. "I want to know what you are. My father..." He pauses, and there's something almost wistful in his expression. "My father came from the heavens. He told my mother that he was one of the Watchers, the holy ones who were given dominion over mankind. But then he saw her, desired her, took her, and I was born. Something new, something powerful, something that shouldn't exist. I know what you are," Methuselah says quietly. "You're the product of rebellion, angels who left their station, who violated the order of creation. The Nephilim laughs, a sound like grinding stone, like the earth itself splitting open. Rebellion. Yes, we are children of rebellion, and we are glorious. We don't die like cattle. We don't bow to invisible gods. We don't spend our brief lives scratching in the dirt and praying for mercy. His golden eyes fix on Methuselah again. But you're something else. Something that smells like their world, but lives in ours. How? I don't know. Liar! The Nephilim's hand shoots out and grabs Methuselah's wrist. The grip is crushing. Methuselah can feel the bones grinding together, can feel his flesh bruising instantly, but he doesn't cry out. He won't give this creature the satisfaction. Tell me your secret, the Nephilim hisses. Tell me how you cheat death, and maybe I'll let you keep your life for a few more of your precious years. Methuselah meets those terrible eyes and speaks with a steadiness he doesn't feel. I don't cheat death. Death will come for me when God decides. And when it does, when my final breath leaves me, you and everything you represent will be judged. For a moment, the Nephilim just stares. Then he releases Methuselah's wrist and steps back. His expression has changed. No longer amused, now something darker, wary perhaps, or angry. Your God is silent, he says slowly. He was silent when my father descended, silent when we were born, silent as we spread across the earth and took what we wanted. We are loud, old man. We are powerful. We are here. Who do you think wins? The silent God or the loud ones? The one who is silent now, Methuselah says, rubbing his bruised wrist, is the one who will speak last. And when he speaks, mountains will melt like wax. The Nephilim stares at him for another long moment. Then he throws back his head and laughs, that terrible grinding sound that makes people cover their ears. I hope you live long enough to see how wrong you are, old man. I hope you live to see my children's children rule every corner of this world. I hope your God's silence becomes so long, so complete, that even you stop believing he'll ever speak again. He turns and walks away, the crowd parting before him like water before a ship's prow. Within moments, he's gone, and the market slowly, hesitantly returns to life. But no one approaches Methuselah. No one meets his eyes. He's been touched by one of them, and that makes him even more untouchable than before. Methuselah doesn't complete his trading. He can't. His hands are shaking too badly, his heart racing too fast. He turns and walks out of the city, back toward the wilderness, back toward the isolation that's become his only refuge. Night falls as he reaches his dwelling, no longer in the village of his birth, but a cave system in the hills, away from people, away from their fear and hatred. Lamech is long dead, buried 20 years ago, another grave, another farewell. Lamech's sons are old men themselves now, scattered across different settlements. They visit sometimes, but not often. The strangeness of having a grandfather who looks younger than they do is too much for most of them to bear. Inside the cave, Methuselah lights a small oil lamp. The flame casts dancing shadows on the rough stone walls. He sits cross-legged on a woven mat, one of the few comforts he allows himself, and pulls out the wooden tablet. 230 marks, 230 years. 230 years of mercy, granted to a world that grows darker with each passing day. He runs his fingers over the marks, feeling each tiny groove. Then he looks at the remaining space on the cedar plank. Still so much wood left, still so many years ahead. The thought makes him want to weep. I'm so tired, God, he whispers into the silence. The words echo off the cave walls and die in the darkness. 230 years. I've buried my wife. I've buried my son. I've watched wickedness spread like a flood. The Nephilim rule through fear. Violence is everywhere. Corruption is everywhere. And I just keep breathing. His voice breaks. He sets the tablet down and presses his palms against his eyes, trying to hold back the tears that threaten to overwhelm him. But they come anyway, hot, bitter tears that he's held back for decades, maybe longer. How much longer must I carry this? How many more years? How many more burials? How many more markets where children throw stones and adults spit? How many more encounters with creatures who mock you to my face while you remain silent? The silence that answers is absolute. No wind, no voice, no sign, just the flickering of the lamp and the sound of his own ragged breathing. He opens his eyes and looks at the tablet again. And then, slowly, he picks up his chisel. The metal feels heavy in his hand, heavier than it should, as if it weighs more with each passing year. But he positions it carefully against the wood and strikes. The sound echoes in the cave, sharp, final, mark number 230, another year, another measure of mercy, another day that someone, somewhere, received grace they didn't deserve because he continued to breathe. As he sets the chisel down, he notices something. His hands, his impossibly young, strong hands, are covered in bruises from the Nephilim's grip. 5 perfect finger marks, already turning purple-black against his skin. They'll heal, of course, they always heal. Within a week, there will be no trace of them, but right now, they're proof. Proof that he can still be hurt. Proof that he's not invincible, not truly immortal, just suspended in time for a purpose he barely understands. He lies back on the mat, staring up at the cave ceiling where shadows dance in the lamplight. Sleep comes slowly, reluctantly, and with it comes something he hasn't experienced in years, a vision, not vivid like the tree, not accompanied by voices or supernatural light, but clear nonetheless. He sees water, rising water, dark, relentless, consuming everything in its path. And floating on the surface, impossibly miraculously, he sees a wooden structure, massive beyond anything he's ever seen constructed. A vessel of some kind with 3 levels visible, sealed tight against the deluge. Inside, through openings he somehow perceives, despite the vision's distance, he sees animals, 2 by 2, of every kind, creatures great and small, predator and prey, all living together in impossible harmony. And he sees people, just a handful of people, 8 souls, a family, safe inside while the world outside drowns in judgment. And standing at an opening in the vessel's side, looking out over the water, with a face both peaceful and sorrowful, he sees a boy. Just a boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with dark, curly hair and eyes that hold more wisdom than any child should possess. The boy turns slowly, as if sensing Methuselah's gaze across the barrier of time and dream, and looks directly at him. Those eyes. Methuselah recognizes something in them, the shape, the depth, the particular shade of brown. They're his eyes, his family's eyes. This boy carries his blood, his line, his legacy. The boy's lips move, forming a single word that Methuselah hears, not with his ears, but with something deeper. Wait. Then the vision fades like morning mist burned away by sun, leaving only the darkness of the cave and the steady flame of the oil lamp and the lingering impression of those eyes. That face, that impossible vessel riding out judgment while the world ends. Methuselah gasps awake, though he wasn't aware he'd been sleeping. His heart races. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cave's cool air. The vision clings to his consciousness like cobwebs, refusing to be dismissed or forgotten, and with it comes a certainty he hasn't felt in decades, a knowing that settles into his bones like warmth after bitter cold. There's a boy coming, not yet. The vision felt distant, separated from the present by a gulf of years, but coming nonetheless. A boy who matters. A boy who will build something impossible in the face of a world's mockery and disbelief. A boy who will survive what nothing else survives. He sits up slowly, every movement deliberate, and reaches for the wooden tablet. His hands, still marked with the Nephilim's bruises, shake slightly as he picks up a piece of charcoal. Beside the 230 marks, he draws a new symbol, a simple curve, like a wave, like water rising, like judgment deferred but not forgotten. He stares at the mark for a long moment, then whispers into the darkness, "Not yet, but someday, when the count is finished, when the mercy runs out, water." He doesn't understand it fully. He doesn't know when or how or exactly why. But for the first time in a very long time, perhaps since Edna died, perhaps even longer, he has a glimpse of the ending, a sense that his years aren't random, aren't meaningless, aren't just an endless parade of suffering with no purpose. There's a destination, an end point, a reason these impossible years continue accumulating like drops filling a cup. And there's a boy coming, a boy who will need the world to hold together just a little longer, a boy who will need time to be born, to grow, to receive an impossible commission from God, a boy who will build an ark while the world laughs, just as Methuselah lives while the world curses. When morning comes, Methuselah rises with something he hasn't felt in decades. Not quite hope. The vision was too terrible for hope, filled as it was with drowning and death and judgment, but purpose, renewed purpose. A sense that the burden he carries isn't arbitrary cruelty, but necessary mercy. Every year he breathes, that boy gets 1 year closer to being born. Every mark he carves, the world receives one more chance to turn from its wickedness. Every insult he endures, every stone thrown, every encounter with corruption and evil, all of it is buying time. Time for a plan that's been in motion since before he was born, since his father named him, "When he dies, it shall be sent." He wraps the tablet carefully in its cloth and tucks it into his traveling bag. Then he gathers the few possessions he'll need, dried food, a water skin, a spare cloak, and steps out of the cave into the morning light. The sun is just cresting the eastern hills, painting the world in shades of gold and rose. Below, in the valley, the city of Enoch sprawls, corrupt, violent, oblivious to the judgment that ticks closer with each breath Methuselah takes. Somewhere in that city, or in another city beyond the horizon, a child might be born today who will grow up to father the boy from his vision, or perhaps that boy's grandfather. Time is strange now, measured not in the normal progression of seasons, but in the slow accumulation of marks on cedar wood. "Count them," Methuselah whispers to himself, repeating the words he heard at the glowing tree so many years ago. "Bear them, remember them." He touches the bruises on his wrist, the Nephilim's mocking grip, the creature's grinding laughter, his declaration that the silent God would never speak, but he will. Methuselah knows it now with unshakable certainty. God will speak, and when he does, when that final word is pronounced, when the last measure of mercy is dispensed and the tablet is full, and Methuselah's ancient heart finally stops beating, then the mountains will melt, and the fountains of the deep will break open, and the windows of heaven will pour forth, and everything the Nephilim have built will wash away like sand before the tide. Year 231 begins today. And somewhere in the dark, wicked world below, events are moving, slowly, invisibly, but inevitably, toward the moment when a boy named Noah will be born. When that boy will hear God's voice in a world that's forgotten how to listen. When that boy will build an impossible vessel on dry land while everyone mocks and no one believes. And Methuselah will be there. He'll live to see it, because the count isn't finished yet. The tablet isn't full, the mercy hasn't run out. He turns his face toward the rising sun, lets its warmth touch his impossibly young skin, and begins the descent toward the valley, toward another year, toward another mark, toward the slow, patient, inexorable march toward the day when he dies and everything is sent. 200 years pass in a slow bleed of time, each year carving itself into Methuselah's consciousness like the marks on his wooden tablet. Each decade a weight that doesn't show on his body but crushes something deeper, something that has no name in human language. Methuselah is 430 years old. The number is incomprehensible even to him. He's lived through the rise and fall of entire cultures, watched languages evolve and die, seen mountains wear down and rivers change their courses. The world of his youth, the simple agricultural communities, the quiet reverence for God, the basic decency that once governed human interaction, is so utterly gone that it might as well be a dream. What has replaced it is nightmare made flesh. The cities have become cesspools of violence so pervasive, so casual, that murder in the streets draws no more attention than someone spilling wine. The Nephilim don't just rule anymore, they've created a hierarchy of tyranny, with lesser giants serving greater ones, and humans serving all of them as slaves, playthings, or prey. Temples to false gods squat on every hilltop, their altars stained with blood from sacrifices that would have been unthinkable in Methuselah's youth. And the wickedness, the sheer concentrated evil that permeates every interaction, every transaction, every breath of air, has reached a saturation point where Methuselah sometimes wonders if he's the last man on earth who even remembers what goodness looked like. But he's not alone. Not quite. Because Noah exists now. Noah, his great-grandson through Lamech's line, is a man now, 50 years old, with a wife named Naamah, and 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Noah is righteous, not perfect, but righteous. In a world drowning in corruption, Noah stands like a solitary tree on a barren hillside, conspicuous, vulnerable, alive. Methuselah has watched him grow from the boy in his vision into a man who prays when everyone else blasphemes, who deals honestly when everyone else cheats, who speaks truth when everyone else traffics in lies. And Methuselah has known since that vision in the cave 200 years ago, that this man is the hinge on which everything turns. This man is the reason for the waiting. This man is what all these impossible years have been buying time for. The village where Noah lives is in chaos this morning. Methuselah approaches slowly, his staff tapping against the packed earth of the road. He doesn't need the staff for support. His legs are still strong, his back still straight, but it gives him something to lean on when the weight of centuries becomes too much to bear upright. As he crests the hill overlooking the settlement, he sees the crowd, hundreds of people packed into the central square, their voices a cacophony of mockery and rage, and at the center of it all, Noah stands beside something that makes Methuselah's breath catch in his throat. The ark, not finished, far from it, but undeniable. The skeleton of a massive vessel rises from the ground like the rib cage of some impossible beast. Cedar beams as thick as a man's body form the framework, stretching higher and longer than any structure Methuselah has ever seen. 3 stories are visible even in this unfinished state. The scale is overwhelming, absurd, defiant, and Noah stands beside it, his sons working behind him despite the crowd's fury, hammering and sawing and refusing to stop. Methuselah pushes through the crowd. People recognize him, they always do, and a ripple of whispered curses follows him. The undying, the omen, death himself walks. But they part for him, whether out of fear or morbid respect. He doesn't know and doesn't care. He reaches the front of the crowd and sees his great-grandson's face. Noah is weathered, bearded, his hands split and bleeding from months of relentless work, but his eyes are clear, determined, unafraid. A man in expensive robes, some local official or priest, stands on a raised platform addressing the crowd. His voice is trained for oratory, carrying easily over the noise. Look at this madman. Look at what he builds. A boat in the middle of dry land, miles from any sea. And why? He turns, gesturing mockingly at Noah. Tell them again, prophet. Tell them why you build this monstrosity. Noah's voice is steady, though Methuselah can hear the exhaustion in it. Because God told me to. Because judgment is coming. Because the wickedness of this world has reached its fullness. And God will cleanse the earth with water. This ark will save my family and 2 of every living creature. Everyone else. He pauses, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. Everyone else will drown unless they repent. The crowd erupts, laughter, jeering, obscenities hurled like stones. Someone throws actual refuse, rotted vegetables that splatter against the ark's frame. "Where's your flood, prophet?" a woman screams. "The sky is clear, the ground is dry, you're insane." Another voice shouts, "Mad like his ancestor, the Undying's bloodline is cursed." "They're all touched by demons." The official raises his hands for silence, grinning. "You claim your God speaks to you. You claim he's told you the world will drown. But your God has been silent for centuries, silent while we've built our cities, silent while the mighty ones have walked among us and brought us knowledge and power. Where is this God of yours, Noah? Why doesn't he show himself if he's so concerned with our wickedness?" Noah opens his mouth to respond, but another voice cuts through the crowd, ancient, carrying a weight that makes even the mockers pause. "He's here!" Methuselah steps forward, his staff striking the ground with each word. He's been here the whole time, watching, counting, waiting. The crowd turns. The official's grin falters as he recognizes Methuselah, the Undying. "Of course you'd support this madness, you who claim to have lived for centuries, you who say your death will signal the end. More delusions from a cursed bloodline." Methuselah climbs onto a stone beside the ark's frame, ignoring the soul-deep ache of carrying truth that no one wants. His voice, when he speaks, carries across the square, with an authority born of 430 years of breathing. "I have lived 430 years. 430 years. I have buried everyone I've ever loved. I have watched this world descend from foolishness into wickedness, from wickedness into corruption, from corruption into absolute evil. And God has kept me alive for one reason, so that when I die, you will know it is finished." Silence. Even the mockers have gone quiet. The official's face is pale. "You claim to know the day of your death." "I don't know the day," Methuselah says, and his voice drops to something almost gentle. "But God does. I am 430 years old, and I've counted every single one of those years. Every year is a mark on this tablet." He pulls out the wooden plank, worn smooth now from centuries of handling, covered with 430 careful grooves. "Every mark is a year of mercy. Every year I breathe is a year God says, not yet. But when my last breath leaves me, when this tablet is full and I close my eyes for the final time, that day the sky will open. That day the deep will break forth. That day everything you've built on wickedness will wash away." The crowd stirs, uncomfortable now, because there's something about Methuselah's presence. His impossible age, his unchanging appearance, the sheer weight of accumulated years, that makes even the cynical wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, he's telling the truth. A priest in the crowd shouts out, "If your God is so merciful, why would he drown the world? Why not simply change our hearts?" "He did speak," Methuselah says quietly. "He spoke to my father Enoch. He speaks to my great-grandson Noah. He speaks through the very fact that I'm still standing here after 4 centuries, still breathing, still bearing witness. But you won't listen. You call truth madness. You call righteousness insanity. You look at a man building an ark and laugh instead of asking why. So God will speak one more time, a final time, in a language even you will understand." "And what language is that?" the official demands. Methuselah meets his eyes. "The judgment." The word falls into the square like a stone into a well, and the echoes spread outward in ripples of unease. Then someone laughs, a forced, brittle sound, and the spell breaks. The mockery resumes, louder now, more desperate, as if volume can drown out the seed of doubt Methuselah's words have planted. The crowd begins to disperse, some throwing final insults, others simply shaking their heads and returning to their daily wickedness as if nothing has happened. Noah approaches Methuselah as the square empties. Up close, He looks even more exhausted, eyes shadowed, shoulders bowed under a weight that's not quite physical. "Grandfather," he says quietly. "You're building well," Methuselah says, studying the ark's frame. "Faster than I expected." Noah's voice is strained. "Not fast enough. Every day they come. Every day they mock. My sons..." He glances back at where Shem, Ham, and Japheth continue working. "They believe because I believe, but sometimes I see doubt in their eyes. Sometimes I wake in the night and wonder if I've gone mad, if I imagined God's voice." Methuselah grips Noah's shoulder. "You're not mad, and you didn't imagine anything. I've seen it, Noah. 200 years ago, I saw this ark in a vision. I saw it floating on water while the world drowned. I saw you and your sons and their wives safe inside. This is real. This is happening." Noah's eyes fill with tears. How much longer? How long until... He can't finish the question. Methuselah pulls out his tablet and shows Noah the marks. 430 grooves carved into cedar. Then he shows the remaining space. "I don't know how much longer, decades perhaps, maybe longer. But when this wood is full, when there's no more room for marks, then it's time." That night, after sitting with Noah's family around their fire, after the simple meal and the questions from Noah's sons, Methuselah and Noah sit alone under the stars. The ark's skeleton looms in the darkness, a promise or a delusion, depending on who's looking. "I'm afraid," Noah says quietly, "not of dying, not of the flood, but of failing. What if I build this ark and God doesn't send the water? What if I've dedicated my life to something that never comes?" Methuselah is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "I've been called worse. For 430 years, I've been called cursed, demon-possessed, mad. My own people spit at me. Children throw stones. And every day I wake up and the world is still here, still wicked, still mocking. Sometimes I wonder if they're right. If I'm just a man who's lived too long and convinced himself his madness has meaning." "But you believe," Noah says. "Despite everything, you still believe." "Yes," Methuselah pulls out his tablet one more time, "because I remember the tree that glowed. I remember my father disappearing into light. I remember the voice that told me every year is mercy. And I remember the vision of your face, Noah, standing in an ark while the world drowned. I believe because I've seen too much not to believe." He stands slowly, feeling every one of his 430 years in a way that has nothing to do with physical aging. "Keep building, Noah. Don't stop. Don't doubt. Even when I'm gone. Especially when I'm gone. Keep building, because when my heart stops, you'll have 7 days. Just 7 days. And then the rain begins." Noah looks up sharply. 7 days? How do you know?" Methuselah smiles sadly. "I don't know with certainty, but it's what I feel. When I die, count to 7. On the 7th day, enter the ark and seal the door." He walks away into the darkness, leaving Noah sitting by the dying fire. Behind him, the sound of hammer on wood echoes across the valley, steady, determined, faithful. The sound of a man building impossible hope while the world laughs. Methuselah walks until he's alone again with the night and the stars and the crushing weight of 430 years. He finds a flat stone and sits, pulling out his tablet one last time. By starlight, he examines the marks. 430 grooves, and below them, the wave symbol he drew 200 years ago, still visible, still waiting. How much longer? He whispers to the silent sky. No answer comes. It never does. But somewhere in the darkness, he feels it, the approaching edge, the drawing near of something final. Not tomorrow, not next year, but closer now than it's ever been. The ark is being built. The righteous man is preparing. The pieces are falling into place. 300 years pass. The number has lost all meaning. Time has become a prison with walls that never move. a sentence that stretches beyond comprehension into something that feels less like living and more like existing in perpetual twilight. Methuselah is 730 years old. The weight of it should kill him, should have killed him centuries ago. But his heart keeps beating with the same steady rhythm it had at 40. His lungs keep drawing breath, his eyes keep seeing a world he no longer recognizes and increasingly wishes he couldn't see at all. The ark is nearly complete now. 120 years Noah has worked on it, 120 years of relentless labor, of mockery endured, of faith tested to the breaking point and somehow not breaking. The vessel is massive beyond description. Its 3 decks sealed with pitch inside and out, its chambers prepared for the animals that will soon come, its rooms ready for the 8 souls who will survive what nothing else survives. But Methuselah barely sees the ark anymore. He lives in a cave now, higher in the mountains, further from human habitation than ever before. The isolation is both burden and blessing. He can no longer bear the sight of cities, the sound of human voices raised in blasphemy and violence, the casual cruelty that has become as natural as breathing to the people of this age. The Nephilim have multiplied beyond counting. Their offspring, even more twisted, even more powerful, rule every settlement, every trade route, every scrap of arable land, and where they don't rule directly, their corruption spreads like rot through wood, infecting everything it touches. The worst part isn't the violence or the idolatry or even the sexual perversity that would have been unimaginable in his youth. The worst part is that no one remembers anything different. The young people born into this world think it's normal. They have no reference point for goodness, no memory of a time when people dealt honestly with each other, when children were safe, when the name of God was spoken with reverence instead of mockery. Evil has become so normalized, so pervasive, that righteousness looks like insanity. Noah's family, those 8 souls preparing to enter the ark, are viewed not as the sane ones in an insane world, but as madmen in a world that's finally achieved enlightenment. Methuselah sits at the entrance to his cave as the sun sets, painting the sky in shades of blood and copper. He holds the wooden tablet in his lap, no longer smooth, now worn rough from 7 centuries of handling. 730 marks cover the surface, carved so close together in some places that they blur into a single groove. He's had to extend the tablet twice over the centuries, adding new pieces of wood lashed together with leather cords, because the original plank ran out of space long ago. The thing is unwieldy now, heavy, a physical manifestation of the burden he carries. He pulls out his chisel, the same one he's used for centuries, reforged and resharpened so many times that it's half the size it once was, and prepares to add mark number 730. But his hand doesn't move. It hovers over the wood, trembling, not with age or weakness, but with something else. Exhaustion, soul-deep, spirit-crushing exhaustion that goes beyond physical tiredness into something that threatens the will to continue existing. "I can't," he whispers to the empty air. "I can't do this anymore. I can't carve another mark. I can't live another year. I can't watch this world get darker. I can't." His voice breaks. The chisel falls from his hand and clatters on the stone floor of the cave. He buries his face in his hands, and for the first time in perhaps a century, he weeps. Not quiet tears, but great racking sobs that shake his entire body, that tear from his chest like something physical being ripped out. 730 years of grief, of loneliness, of watching everyone he's ever loved turn to dust while he remains. 730 years of being called cursed, demon-possessed, abomination. 730 years of carrying mercy for a world that doesn't want it, doesn't recognize it, would spit on it if they knew what it was. "Please," he gasps between sobs, "please, God. Please let me die. I've done what you asked. I've counted every year, I've borne witness, I've carved every mark, but I can't anymore. I'm so tired, I'm so alone. Everyone is gone. Edna's been dust for 600 years. Lamech's grave is so old, I can't even find it anymore. My great-great-great-grandchildren don't know my name. I'm a ghost in a world that doesn't want ghosts. Please, please let me rest. The silence that follows is absolute. No wind, no voice, no comfort. Just the dying light and his ragged breathing and the terrible, crushing awareness that tomorrow he'll wake up and the next day and the next. And the count will continue because the count always continues until it doesn't. He doesn't know how long he sits there, hunched over, the tablet in his lap, the chisel on the ground. Hours, perhaps. The sun fully sets. Stars emerge, the same stars that shone when he was born, that will shine after he's finally gone. Cold seeps into the cave. He should light a fire, should eat something, should do any of the small tasks that constitute survival. But he doesn't move, can't move. The weight is too much. Then he hears it. Footsteps on the path leading to his cave. Slow, deliberate footsteps accompanied by heavy breathing. Someone is climbing to find him. Methuselah doesn't look up. Doesn't care who it is or what they want. Let them come. Let them mock or attack or whatever they've come for. He has nothing left to give. Grandfather, Noah's voice. Methuselah's head jerks up. His great-grandson stands at the cave entrance, silhouetted against the starlight. Noah is 170 years old now, ancient by the standards of this age, though young compared to Methuselah. His beard is fully white, his back bent, his hands gnarled from decades of building, but his eyes are still clear, still determined, still carrying that impossible faith that Methuselah both admires and envies. Noah. Methuselah's voice comes out rough, broken. You shouldn't have climbed all the way up here. It's dangerous in the dark. I had to come. I had a dream. Noah enters the cave, moving slowly, lowering himself to sit across from Methuselah with visible effort. 3 nights now, the same dream. I see you here alone, weeping. I see the tablet in your lap. And I see... He pauses, his expression troubled. I see empty space, just a little. Not much, but empty space at the end of all those marks. Methuselah looks down at the tablet. Noah is right. Despite 730 marks, despite the extensions lashed on with leather, there's still a small section of blank wood at the very end. Maybe space for 50 more marks. Maybe 100. Maybe 200. He's never counted exactly how much remains. He's been afraid to count, afraid to know. The ark is finished, Noah says quietly. Every board in place, every seal complete. The ramp is ready, the chambers are prepared. Everything God commanded me to do, it's done. And now I wait. We all wait. My sons, their wives, Nama, we wake each morning and wonder if today is the day. If today the animals will come. If today the sky will darken. If today... He stops, then continues more softly. Adun, if today you'll die. The words hang in the cold air. Methuselah finally picks up the chisel from where it fell. His hand is steadier now. I'm sorry, he says. I'm sorry you've tied your fate to mine. I'm sorry you've built your life around waiting for an old man to stop breathing. Don't apologize. Noah leans forward, and there's steel in his voice despite his exhaustion. Everything I've done because God commanded it. Not because of you. Not because of prophecy or visions or signs. Because God spoke directly to me and told me to build an ark. The fact that your life is connected to the timing, that's God's design, not your burden alone. But what if I live another 200 years? Another 300? What if there's more space on this tablet than either of us can see? What if you die of old age before I do, and your sons have to carry your faith, and their sons after them, and the ark just sits there rotting while I keep breathing and breathing, and the world keeps getting worse? Noah is quiet for a long moment. Then he says, "Then that's what happens, and we'll have built the ark in obedience, even if we never see the rain." But I don't believe that, grandfather. I don't believe God would command me to build for 120 years just to let it rot. I don't believe he's kept you alive for 7 centuries just to continue another 7. Something is coming. I feel it. The world feels it. Even the animals feel it. They're restless, moving in patterns that make no sense, as if preparing for something they don't understand. Methuselah looks at his great-grandson. This man who has sacrificed everything for faith, who has endured mockery and isolation and doubt, who has poured his entire adult life into a project the whole world calls madness. And he sees something in Noah's face that he hasn't seen in his own reflection for centuries. Hope. Not naive hope or blind optimism, but the kind of hope that's been tested and refined and somehow survived. "You're stronger than me," Methuselah says quietly. "You always have been." "No." Noah shakes his head. "I'm standing on 730 years of your strength. Every year you've lived has bought me time to be born, time to grow, time to hear God's voice, time to build. I'm not stronger, I'm just the one who gets to see the fruit of your suffering." Methuselah feels something shift inside him. Not release from the burden, the weight is still crushing, still impossible, but a slight redistribution, a sharing. He's not carrying this alone. Noah carries it too, in his own way. Those 8 souls preparing to enter the ark, they carry it. Even the mockers in the valley below, oblivious as they are, carry it in the mercy they receive without knowing. He positions the chisel against the wood and strikes. The sound echoes in the cave, sharp, clear, final. Mark number 730. Another year, another measure of patience, another breath of mercy granted to a world that doesn't deserve it. "Thank you for coming," Methuselah says as he sets the chisel aside. "Thank you for climbing all this way just to sit with an old man who's forgotten how to hope." "You haven't forgotten." Noah rises slowly, joints creaking. "You're still carving marks." That's hope, even when it doesn't feel like it. He moves to the cave entrance, then pauses and looks back. The empty space on that tablet. "It's not much, grandfather. Not much at all. 50 years, maybe. Perhaps less. I don't think either of us will wait much longer." After Noah leaves, Methuselah sits in the darkness for a long time, staring at the tablet. He counts the remaining blank space by running his fingers over the wood. Noah was right. Maybe 50 marks worth of room, maybe 60 at most, 50 to 60 years. For most people, that's a lifetime. For him, it's barely a heartbeat in the vast expanse of centuries he's already lived. But it's also, finally, an ending, a visible ending. He can see the edge now, can count the steps remaining until he reaches it. He wraps the tablet carefully and places it in the corner where he keeps his few possessions. Then he lies down on his sleeping mat, staring up at the cave ceiling where shadows dance from the small fire he's finally built. And for the first time in decades, maybe centuries, he sleeps without nightmares. Because the ending is coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Visible on the horizon, real, a light at the end of a 700-year tunnel. When he wakes the next morning, something has changed in him. The crushing weight is still there. It will never truly leave until his last breath. But underneath it, barely perceptible, is something else. A spark. Not hope exactly, but perhaps its distant cousin, endurance. The knowledge that he can bear this for 50 more years. That 50 more marks are possible. That the end, however far, is no longer incomprehensibly distant. He steps out of the cave into the morning light and looks down at the valley where Noah's ark sits, massive, impossible, ready, waiting. Just like Methuselah himself, waiting for the count to end, waiting for the mercy to run out, waiting for God to finally speak his last word. And in the distance, storm clouds gather on the horizon. They've been gathering for weeks now, unnatural clouds that appear and disappear, that move against the wind, that seem to be slowly, inexorably surrounding the entire world. No one in the valley notices them, or if they do, they dismiss them as weather, as natural phenomena, as anything except what they actually are, the first whispers of judgment, the advance guard of the flood, the physical manifestation of patience running out. Methuselah watches the clouds and feels something settle in his chest, a certainty, a knowing, not 50 years, probably not even 20. The space on the tablet is shrinking faster than the wood suggests, compressed by divine purpose into something tighter, more urgent. He doesn't know exactly when, he's never known exactly when, but soon, very soon, he'll carve the final mark. He'll close his eyes, and 7 days later, the rain will begin. 39 years pass, like the final grains of sand through an hourglass, each one counted, each one precious, each one bringing the world closer to an edge it doesn't know exists. Methuselah is 769 years old. The number should be impossible. It is impossible. And yet he wakes each morning and his heart still beats and his lungs still draw breath, and another day begins that he didn't think he'd see. The tablet is nearly full now. 769 marks cover every inch of wood, carved so densely in places that they've become a single continuous groove. Only a tiny space remains at the very end, room for perhaps 10 more marks, perhaps 20 if he carves them smaller. He studies this space obsessively now, running his fingers over it multiple times each day, as if touch might reveal exactly how many years remain hidden in that final sliver of blank cedar. The world has reached a breaking point. Violence is no longer occasional or shocking. It's constant, ubiquitous, the very fabric of human interaction. The Nephilim have bred so extensively that hybrid bloodlines run through nearly every family. The old restraints, fear of divine punishment, social shame, basic human empathy have completely dissolved. People kill for pleasure. They enslave for convenience. They commit acts that would have been unthinkable in Methuselah's youth and think nothing of it, feel nothing about it, consider it simply the way the world works. But something else is happening too. The animals are moving. For months now, Methuselah has watched from his mountain cave as creatures of every kind have been migrating in strange patterns. Birds that should fly south are flying north. Predators that should hunt are traveling peacefully alongside prey. Wolves walking with lambs, lions moving with cattle, bears lumbering through valleys where they've never been seen before. And they're all moving in the same direction, toward Noah's Ark. Methuselah makes the journey down from his cave on a morning when the sky is the color of old bruises, purple and yellow and sickly green, clouds that shouldn't exist hanging motionless despite the wind. His legs are strong, his back is straight, but something in his chest feels different today, tighter, heavier, as if his heart is preparing itself for something it's known was coming for 769 years. When he reaches the valley where the ark stands, he stops and simply stares. 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high, 3 full decks with a door in the side and a window running around the top. Complete, final. Waiting. Noah sees him approaching and comes down the ramp, moving carefully. He's 209 years old now, and unlike Methuselah, he shows every year of it. His beard is white as snow, his body bent, his movements slow and painful, but his eyes still burn with faith that hasn't dimmed despite 2 centuries of mockery. "Grandfather," he says, and his voice is hoarse, worn. "You came. I had to." Methuselah looks past Noah to where his sons and their wives are moving supplies into the ark. It's close now. Very close. Noah nods slowly. I know. The animals are gathering. Have you seen them? Hundreds already in the hills, thousands more coming, pairs of every kind, just as God said. They started arriving 3 days ago, circling, waiting. Waiting for what? Noah meets his eyes. Waiting for you. A commotion rises from the valley below, voices raised in anger and mockery, growing louder as a crowd approaches. Methuselah and Noah turn to see a mob coming toward the ark, at least 100 people, maybe more, led by a massive Nephilim, whose shadow falls across the ground like a stain. This giant is even larger than any Methuselah has encountered, 10 feet tall, shoulders like stone, eyes that burn with intelligence and malice in equal measure. The crowd behind him carries torches, despite the daylight, clubs and stones, their faces twisted with fury at the ark that stands as a silent rebuke to their chosen way of life. The Nephilim stops 20 paces away. His features are wrong in ways that make Methuselah's skin crawl. Too symmetrical, too perfect, as if someone who didn't quite understand human anatomy tried to create a face from memory. When he speaks, his voice resonates with harmonics that hurt to hear. 209 years, Noah. 209 years you've been building this monument to your delusion. Where's your flood, prophet? Where's the judgment your invisible God promised? Noah's voice is steady. It's coming. The animals know it. They're gathering even now. Animals? The Nephilim laughs, that grinding stone-on-stone sound. Confused creatures wandering in circles. You see divine purpose in natural phenomena. You're insane. And yet you're here, Methuselah says quietly, stepping forward. The crowd notices him for the first time, and a ripple of whispers runs through them. The undying. 700 years old. The Nephilim's burning gaze shifts to Methuselah, and something like recognition flickers in those inhuman eyes. Ah, the man who won't die. Tell me, old man, in 700 years of living, how many times has your God spoken to you? How many times has he shown himself? Methuselah feels his heart hammering in his chest, harder than it should, irregular, as if something inside is finally beginning to break down after 7 centuries of impossible function. He's spoken to me twice. Once through my father, once at a tree that glowed with divine fire, that's all. 2 times in 769 years. Twice. The Nephilim straightens, spreading his arms to the crowd. Now twice, in almost 8 centuries, what kind of God is so silent? The kind, Methuselah says, and his voice rises despite the pain growing in his chest, who is so patient that he gives mercy even when it's not deserved. Every year I've lived has been a year of grace for this world. Every breath I've taken has been God saying, not yet. There's still time to repent. But the time is running out. Running out? The Nephilim laughs again. You're old, Methuselah. Impossibly old. But you're not immortal. Someday you'll die like everything dies, and the world will continue exactly as it is. The crowd roars its approval. Someone throws a stone. It strikes the ark's side with a hollow thunk. Noah's sons emerge from inside the vessel, but Noah raises his hand, stopping them. Let them mock. In 7 days, they'll understand. 7 days. The Nephilim's expression shifts, amusement giving way to something darker. Oh, do you give us a timeline now? Well then, prophet, we'll give you 7 days. And when the sun rises on the 8th day and the ground is still dry, we'll tear down your ark board by board. The mob disperses slowly, reluctantly. When they're gone, silence settles over the valley. Noah turns to Methuselah, his face stricken. Why did I say that? Why did I give them 7 days? You said it because it's true, Methuselah interrupts. His chest is tight now, painful, as if something inside is slowly clenching like a fist. 7 days from when I die. That's what I've always known. Noah's eyes widen. But you're not. He stops, studying Methuselah's face. Whatever he sees there makes his expression shift to dawning horror. Grandfather, are you... is it... I don't know, Methuselah says honestly. But something feels different. My heart, it's beating wrong. Too hard in some moments, too soft in others. Skipping rhythms, it's kept perfect for 769 years. That night, Noah insists Methuselah stay at the ark. They prepare a space for him inside the vessel, a small room near the center, cushioned with blankets, warm and dry and smelling of fresh-cut cedar and pitch. Methuselah lies down as the sun sets, surrounded by Noah's family who gather to pray over him. As the others leave and Noah prepares to sleep nearby, Methuselah pulls out his tablet one final time. 769 marks. And at the end, barely visible in the lamplight, a tiny sliver of unmarked wood. Space for one more mark. Maybe two if he carves them very small, but probably just one. He picks up his chisel with trembling hands and positions it against the wood. The metal feels heavier than it ever has. He strikes. The sound echoes through the ark, sharp, clear, final. Mark number 769. The chisel slips from his fingers and falls to the wooden floor with a clatter. He stares at the tablet, at the marks that represent every year of impossible longevity, every measure of mercy granted. And he realizes with absolute certainty there is no room for another mark. The wood is full, the count is complete, the mercy has run out. Noah, he whispers, and his great-grandson is beside him instantly. It's done, look. He holds up the tablet, shows him the final mark, the absence of any space for another. 769 years. The count is finished. Noah's face goes pale in the lamplight. Then that means in 7 days, God stops being silent. Methuselah's chest tightens again. And this time the pain is sharp enough to make him gasp. 7 days from when I die. And Noah, I think I'm dying now. The words hang in the air like a pronouncement of judgment, because that's exactly what they are. Not just the death of one impossibly old man, but the end of patience, the end of mercy, the end of chances. When Methuselah's heart finally stops beating, God will count to 7 and then speak his last word, and that word will be water. Methuselah dies on a Tuesday morning, 7 days before the world ends. He doesn't wake in pain or struggle for breath or cry out in fear. He simply closes his eyes after 769 years of keeping them open, and his ancient heart, that impossible muscle that's beaten without stopping since before the great cities were built, before languages diverged, before wickedness became the water in which humanity swam, finally, mercifully, stops. Noah finds him an hour after sunrise. He's been checking on his great-grandfather every few hours through the night, watching the slow decline, the breathing that grew shallower, the pulse that grew fainter. But when he enters the small room this morning, he knows immediately. The quality of stillness is different, final. Methuselah lies on his back, hands folded across his chest, face peaceful in a way Noah has never seen it. The wooden tablet rests beside him, 769 marks covering every surface, the chisel lying where it fell. Noah sinks to his knees beside the body and weeps, not loud sobs, but quiet tears that fall like rain. "Thank you," he whispers. "Thank you for carrying this. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for making it possible for us to be here, now ready." When he finally emerges from the ark, his family is waiting. Naamah sees his face and understands immediately. She covers her mouth with both hands. Shem, Ham, and Japheth stand frozen, and for a moment no one moves or speaks. Then Shem says, "When?" And Noah answers, "This morning." He's at peace. The words sound inadequate. The oldest witness is gone. The final countdown has begun. 7 days. Just 7 days until everything changes. They bury Methuselah that same day on a hillside overlooking the valley where the ark sits. They dig the grave deep, line it with stones, lower the body wrapped in clean linen. Noah places the wooden tablet in Methuselah's hands, that record of mercy, that testament to patience. As they cover the grave with earth, Noah notices something that makes his breath catch. Animals, everywhere. The hillside is covered with them, creatures of every kind standing in absolute silence, watching, lions and lambs, wolves and sheep, bears and deer, predator and prey, standing together without violence, as if they've gathered to witness the passing of the man whose life kept the world alive just a little longer. They stay until the grave is completely covered, and then, as if released by some signal, they begin moving toward the ark in pairs. The next 6 days are chaos held barely in check by divine purpose. The animals come in waves. 2 by 2 they enter the ark, filling the prepared chambers, settling into spaces that somehow accommodate them all, despite the impossibility of the math. Noah and his family work without stopping, guiding animals, securing doors, making final preparations. The people from the valley come to watch, and their mockery has shifted to something else now. Unease, fear disguised as bravado. They see the animals entering in perfect pairs, see the sky growing darker with each passing day, and some of them begin to wonder if perhaps the madman was right after all. On the 6th day, a group of perhaps 20 people approach the ark. Not the Nephilim or the mockers, but ordinary people, farmers and craftsmen, mothers with children. One woman with a baby calls out to Noah, "Please, if there's room, if judgment is really coming, let us in." Noah's face crumples with grief. He descends the ramp and stands before them, and his voice breaks. "I can't. God said 8. Only 8 human souls. You had time. Methuselah lived 769 years. That's 769 years of mercy. 769 opportunities to turn back. And now, his voice fails. He can only shake his head and walk back up the ramp. On the 7th day, the sky is black. Not the black of night, but something else. A darkness that seems to come from the clouds themselves. The wind has stopped completely. The silence is absolute, oppressive, like the held breath before a scream. Noah and his family stand at the entrance to the ark, looking out at a world that doesn't know it has hours left. "It's time," Noah says. Nama goes first, then their daughters-in-law, then the sons. Noah is last. He stands at the threshold for a long moment, staring out at the darkness, at the crowds gathered at a distance. 7 days, one of the Nephilim shouts. "Your old man died 7 days ago, and where's the flood?" Noah doesn't answer. He simply steps inside, and as his foot crosses the threshold, the door, massive, made of cedar beams, swings shut on its own. Not slammed by wind, not pushed by hands, but moved by an invisible force that's both gentle and absolute. It closes with a sound like thunder, and then it seals itself. The gaps between the boards disappear, as if the wood is growing together, fusing. From inside, Noah and his family hear divine carpentry, creation itself reshaping matter. When it stops, the door is gone. There's no handle, no opening, no way out. They're sealed inside by God himself. Outside, the crowd surges forward. The Nephilim reaches the ark first, pounding on the hull. "Open up! Come out! Your 7 days are up and nothing's—" He stops. His head tilts upward. Every head tilts upward, because the sky is cracking, not like clouds breaking apart, but like the sky itself is fracturing, like the dome of heaven is splitting open. And through those cracks comes water, not rain, not droplets, but torrents, columns, oceans pouring through ruptures in reality itself. At the same moment, the ground begins to shake. The fountains of the great deep are breaking open. Fissures appear in the earth, and from them erupts water under pressure, geysers shooting hundreds of feet into the air. The valley begins to flood within minutes. What was dry ground becomes a lake, becomes a sea, becomes an ocean. The water rising so fast that people barely have time to scream. The Nephilim tries to run, but the water is faster. It sweeps him off his feet. The crowds scatter, but there's nowhere to go. The water is everywhere at once, rising from below and falling from above. Within an hour, the valley is completely submerged. People cling to trees that are themselves being uprooted. They climb hilltops that become islands, that become submerged peaks. They scream for mercy, cry out to Noah, promise to believe, to repent, but it's too late. 769 years too late. Inside the ark, Noah and his family feel the vessel begin to lift, rising on water, accumulating faster than seems possible. They're pressed against walls, holding support beams, listening to sounds from outside. The screams, the pounding on the hull, the scraping of fingernails on pitch-sealed wood. The sounds last for hours as the water continues to rise, as mountains themselves begin to disappear, as everything not sealed inside this vessel drowns in judgment that's been delayed for nearly 8 centuries, but will not be delayed one moment more. Then, slowly, the sounds fade, the screaming stops, the pounding ceases. There's only rain, endless, relentless rain, and the creaking of timbers as the ark floats on an ocean that now covers the entire world. Noah moves to the window and looks out. All he can see is water, water in every direction. No land, no mountains, no trace that civilization ever existed, just water and rain and the ark floating on judgment's surface. He sinks to his knees, and the tears come without restraint, not for himself, they're saved, but for everyone else, for the millions who drowned, for the children, for the people who finally believed but believed too late, for Methuselah, who carried mercy for 769 years and then died knowing what his death would trigger. He was right, Noah whispers. Every year he lived was mercy. Every mark he carved was another chance, and we threw it all away. Naama kneels beside him, her hand on his shoulder. It's not over, she says quietly. We're here, 8 souls, 8 chances to do better, 8 people who can rebuild with righteousness. That's why we're saved, Noah, not because we're perfect, but because we listened when everyone else refused to hear. Days pass, weeks, the rain continues, the water rises, and the ark floats on. Noah tends to the animals with his family, and in the daily rhythms of keeping life alive, he finds something like peace. This is the other side of judgment. Not just destruction, but preservation. Not just ending, but beginning. One evening, 40 days after the rain began, Noah returns to the small room where Methuselah died. He sits where his great-grandfather lay and pulls from his robe something he saved, a small piece of the wooden tablet broken off from the corner, just 5 marks visible, 5 out of 769. You weren't cursed, Noah says to the memory. You were the greatest blessing this wicked world ever received, and they never knew it. Every year you suffered was a year. Someone else got to breathe. Every day you endured mockery was a day God held back his hand. You were mercy incarnate, grandfather. And when you finally died, when the mercy ended, judgment fell like rain that never stops. He looks at the 5 marks and makes a decision. When they leave this ark, when the water recedes and they step onto dry ground, he'll plant a tree over this fragment. A memorial for Methuselah, whose name means, when he dies it shall be sent, and whose life was the longest warning, the most patient mercy, the final countdown before everything changed. Outside, the rain begins to slow, not stopping yet, but easing. The worst is over. The judgment has fallen. The world has been cleansed until nothing remained except 8 souls and the animals that will repopulate a purified earth. And somewhere beneath all that water, on a hillside now hundreds of feet below the surface, Methuselah rests. The man who lived 969 years, the countdown that finally reached 0, the mercy that ended so judgment could begin. His burden is finished. His count is complete. And the world that will emerge when the waters recede will be built on the foundation of his patience, his endurance, his 769 years of being the space between God's warning and God's wrath. He was the longest life ever recorded and the most meaningful death, because when Methuselah closed his eyes, time ran out, and when time ran out, heaven opened, and when heaven opened, everything was sent, just as his name always promised it would be. If this story touched you, if you see your own years differently now, if you understand that every breath is mercy and every day is grace, subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this with someone who needs hope, because we're all living on borrowed time. We're all counting down to something. The only question is, what will we do with the time we have left?